Weathering the Winter is sponsored by Allen's Jewelry and Pawn.
Coming up on our News 13 Weathering the Winter special, El Nino could have a big impact in the mountains this winter. We break down what to expect when it comes to snow and temperatures.
And we look back at the impact of a brutal past El Nino.
That's a night I'll never forget. It was one of the scariest nights of my life.
What a former News 13 anchor says about a snowstorm that left many people stranded.
Plus, a mountain festival honoring weather folklore, how legends say a furry insect could make a big difference with winter predictions.
And we'll show you some simple ways to keep your outdoor pets warm this winter. And good evening, I'm Ryan Coulter.
And I'm Jason Boyer. Thank you for joining us for News 13's Weathering the Winter special. We'll tell you everything you need to know to make it through the winter. First, let's get to what may make this winter especially severe, and that's El Nino. Where the last 3 winters were dominated by La Nina, this winter will be dominated by an El Nino. What exactly is an El Nino? It's unusually warmer than average sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. Now, these warmer waters change global wind patterns and help energize the southern or subtropical branch of the jet stream. This in turn means more frequent storms in the southern U.S. Now, this increased storm activity usually means not only wetter than average winters, but typically cooler than average winters for the southeast. However, western North Carolina doesn't always fall in line with this pattern and tends to be more average in temperatures. We're going to talk more about that in detail. So plenty of opportunity this winter to get snow. The question will be, can we get the temperatures cold enough to actually produce snow each time we have a system come through? And that's usually not the case. But December, January, and February, here's how the precipitation patterns break down. Wetter than average in the southeast. A closer inspection shows much wetter than average for much of the Carolinas and in the deeper south, whereas we're typically a little wetter than average here in the Asheville area and western North Carolina. Temperature-wise, we can expect near normal temperatures, at least the Climate Prediction Center thinks that, as we go through December, January, and February in the south. And a closer inspection of that shows, again, the gray areas represent where we'll have more typical winter temperatures. So yes, we'll have our cold snaps, and yes, we'll have our mild spells, but in the end, everything should even out. And we'll talk more about how key those cold snaps will be in that winter forecast when we talk about your official snow forecast in mere minutes.
All right, the winter of 2009 to 2010 was during one of those weak to moderate El Ninos, but that pattern contributed to some big snows in western North Carolina. Meteorologist Karen Wynn takes a look back at the snowstorm of December 18th, 2009 that left so many people stranded.
We started out around daybreak with some light snow falling, and it actually changed to rain in the mid to late morning.
National Weather Service meteorologist Pat Moore remembers forecasting for the December 18th, 2009 snowstorm.
To get a big winter storm in the mountains, we need 2 things. One, you need the precipitation, and the other thing is you need the cold air. And around this part of the country, it's difficult to get both of those things in place at the same time.
Moore knew the moisture was there as he and fellow meteorologists tracked a strong area of low pressure moving out of the Gulf of Mexico and across southern Georgia. But he remembers the cold Canadian air moving down from Lake Ontario was trickier to forecast. But that cold air arrived, changing the rain back to snow around noon.
From about 2 until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we had heavy snow that fell.
My daughter, Shayna Wynn, was 10 and in the 5th grade at the time. She was one of the many children who were let out of school that day.
I just remember it being like a winter wonderland and coming outside and being like, oh my gosh, no way this is real. There's so much snow.
And the snow came down fast.
It's the rate that's the real problem, because it makes it a lot harder to keep the roads clean when the snow is coming down so quickly.
That's a night I'll never forget. It was one of the scariest nights of my life.
Former News 13 anchor Darcel Grimes was on her way into work, traveling along I-26 when it became snow-covered.
Everywhere you look, there are cars that have skidded off the road.
Darcel tried to exit the interstate and take Highway 191 to work, but a highway patrol officer talked her out of it.
So I pull over by him and I say, the station said go 191. And he said, please, Miss Grimes, don't do that. It's a sheet of ice.
Darcel missed work that day, one of many trapped on the interstate for hours. She returned home around 11 o'clock that night.
And by the time I made it home, I was a nervous wreck.
By the next morning, 1 to 2 feet of snow had fallen across parts of western North Carolina. Pat Moore says while El Niño years don't always lead to big snowstorms, they are known for producing more southern storm systems that may or may not always get that cold enough air for snow.
If you want to hit a home run, you're more likely to do that the more times you come up to bat.
For Shayna, now 24, that big snow left her nostalgic and hoping for more.
I always want the big snow. I always welcome it because it reminds me of my childhood.
But Darcel, not so much. She knows where she will be if there are any heavy snowfalls this year.
I'm not going out. I'm not even going to put my foot out the door.
In Asheville, I'm Karen Wynn, News 13.
And I remember that storm very well as well. The North Carolina Department of Transportation is prepared for the winter. Division crews at the Madison County Maintenance Yard have been preparing all fall, even though winter doesn't officially begin until December 21st. They've checked all the snow plows, making sure their equipment is ready to go.
We have this day and really the week to check all of our equipment, make sure it's working properly, and then we'll go and actually ride our routes, do a dry run, just to make sure that there's nothing in our turnarounds, or make sure everyone knows where their routes are for wintertime for whenever it does snow.
Now all equipment is cleaned, repaired, and tested, and they've stocked up on salt and sand. Statewide, the DOT can store up to 175,000 tons of salt and sand and 2 million gallons of brine. Well, the Blue Ridge Parkway remains a popular destination right on through winter.
Yeah, during ice, snow, and fog events, the Parkway can be both beautiful and dangerous at the same time. Parkway rangers closely monitor the weather forecast and close sections of the Parkway that could become unsafe. Many visitors still choose to go on the Parkway to hike in the wintry conditions. Parkway official Lisa Brandon says it's essential to be prepared.
Oftentimes, you could start out on a sunny day in Asheville and head north a little bit on the Parkway and be in precipitation and fog and wish that you had more layers than maybe you left home with.
They say Parkway visitors should always let friends or family know where they're going and when they'll be back. Daily road closures are posted on the Blue Ridge Parkway website. And coming up, a local festival honoring weather folklore. Why a little bug takes center stage in one mountain town as winter approaches.
And protecting your pets during the winter months, what local shelter officials say you can do to keep them safe. Duke Energy is staying prepared as cold weather creeps into the mountains. Duke now has a position solely dedicated to extreme weather preparation. Each of their sites has a coordinator that ensures insulation and portable heaters are in place. They also have a self-learning forecasting model.
We use that to make the best plans we can weeks and months in advance, so it continues to learn. And when you have a major event, that data is put in there, and then that it helps make it better.
Duke urges customers to always report power outages, and they're also urging customers to have patience as crews work to make repairs. Winter can be a particularly tough time for animals and the people who love them. Bringing animals inside on our coldest days and nights is the best way to keep them safe, but it isn't always possible.
Yeah, that's right. Megan Danahay stopped by Sarge's Animal Rescue in Waynesville to learn more about some of the things that you can do to help out animals outside in the winter.
When it gets cold out, unfortunately, it can be really hard for animals to keep warm. Their body temperatures drop pretty significantly, especially when it's under 35 degrees outside.
There's a large population of stray animals in our area. Maybe you have a community cat or feral cats in your neighborhood. It's easy to build a shelter, oftentimes with items you already have at home.
So you need 2 containers, both with lids.
The containers are two different sizes because one is going to fit inside of the other.
You're going to use this box cutter to cut these holes. These holes are typically 5 to 6 inches in diameter.
You'll want to finish those holes with duct tape to get rid of any sharp edges.
Hay is for horses and straw typically repels water. So you want to use this for insulation.
Fill the larger container with straw up to the bottom of the hole. Then place the smaller container inside, lining up the holes. Next, pack more straw around the smaller container.
Just before closing this up, you're going to want to put a nice amount of straw into there as well.
Things that are super warm to us, that big comfy blanket, that big comforter, even newspaper, while they may be warm for a little bit for an animal, once they get wet, then they really are more of a hazard.
Secure both lids and be sure to label the top so neighbors and others know to leave the shelter in place. 2x4s are enough to elevate the shelter off of the ground, which helps with insulation. For dogs, igloos or other makeshift shelters with angled tops work great.
The use of the igloos are really good in that they're round at the top. So because of that, you're not going to have water standing or melted ice or snow. So it's going to actually just fall off the sides so you don't have that collecting on top.
Be sure to fill the bottom of the igloo with plenty of good insulators like straw or wood chips.
You just want to make sure that it's being checked regularly, that these materials are not getting wet, because that can actually cause more harm than good to the animals.
In Waynesville, Megan Danahay, News 13.
It can be tough on people and pets this time of year. If you are having any trouble housing or feeding your animals, please reach out. There are many resources available: food banks, your county humane society, our municipal shelters, and local rescue organizations. They're there to help.
Well, we've already had some snow this year. Here is some of those videos sent in by viewers of the wintry weather on December 6th. You can see a blanket of snow at the higher elevations. Pictures poured in from Haywood, Madison, and Yancey counties. Only a few flakes fell for those of us in the lower elevations. And forget the science. One mountain tradition says something else can predict the winter weather. And the forecast comes from the slowest race in North Carolina. In the shadows of the changing leaves, the town of Banner Elk is crawling with excitement. Every fall, the town trades its namesake for something much smaller.
The woolly worm.
Although small, the woolly worm is a big deal around here. Thousands of visitors head to the Woolly Worm Festival every year, and the main draw, the worm races.
I'm not going to do the math, but I can tell you we have 25 worms in a race, and we had 56 races yesterday.
Over the course of the weekend, hundreds of worm coaches are hoping their furry climbers are the first to the top of the string.
I got second place like a lot of years ago, but this is my first time getting first.
This is Luke and Ava's 15th year coming to the festival, which means they've learned the secret to success.
Dedication.
I put mine in my pocket so it would stay warm the whole time.
Ava's worm just one of the relay winners, but there can only be one winner at the end, and according to tradition, this winning worm holds the prediction for the upcoming winter.
At the end of the whole thing on Sunday this afternoon, he's going to actually read out based on color, size, and stripe pattern what our winter is going to look like.
Here's how it works. These caterpillars have 13 body segments. Each segment represents one of the 13 weeks of winter. The lighter brown segments are said to represent mild weeks, while increasingly dark colors indicate wetter and colder weeks. This year's winner is predicting a colder winter with more snow.
You got to tell me, what's the accuracy of these guys?
We got you beat by a lot. We are 87% accurate. Sorry to say that.
We'll see about that. In Banner Elk, Ryan Coulter, News 13. And as temperatures drop, you may be wondering what you can do to keep your car running smoothly this winter. Experts say one of the most important things you can do to make sure your battery is working well. If you have a weak battery, your car may not start. You'll also want to make sure your oil is topped off and your belts, heat, and defrost are all working. Working wipers are also important, especially if it starts snowing. As instructors at AB Tech tell us, the winter can also be tough for electric vehicle owners.
Expect to lose between 20 and 30% of your range when it's really cold outside. Most electric vehicles really like to be between about 65 degrees and 90 degrees. So pretty much all winter, your electric vehicle is going to be on its less happy side of the charge.
All right, the instructor says you should always try to keep your electric vehicle fully charged and plan charging stops for long-range trips. Experts say you should also wash your car off after the roads are salted, as that can cause damage to your paint. And coming up, love it or hate it, snow is a fact of life here in our area during the winter. What a local psychology professor says about the mixed emotions caused by snowstorms.
And we're just minutes away now from your official winter forecast. Snow lovers, I think you'll be pleased with what we have for you. Stick around.
After a warm start to the ski season, Cataloochee is open for business. The average opening day is November 15th, but this year it had to be pushed back to later in the month. Snow guns have been continuing to build up a thick layer of snow on the main runs in Madison County. Hadley Point, formerly known as Wolf Ridge, plans on opening its slopes January 11th or 12th. And one of the questions that we always get asked more than others, and that is one that gets people talking more than others: how much snow are we going to get this winter?
Yeah, but why do so many flake out at the mere mention of the word snow? Well, I wanted to find out.
Snow. Go get it. Go get it. It can bring out the best or the worst in us. But no matter what, it often works us into a frenzy. But why is that? In order to find out, I felt the logical choice was to talk to a professor of psychology. Mark Harvey has studied how people react to adverse and difficult weather.
Some people love adverse weather. You know, it's invigorating for them, it's challenging. You know, they want to go out and explore it, and whether it's snow or wind or driving rain, it's exciting for them.
We'll call these people weather enthusiasts or weather junkies.
I love winter, especially when it snows. I think specifically here, we get a little bit too much wind, but the nice, brisky, cold weather is really nice.
Then there are the others.
Cold, snowy weather is just going to be automatically thought of as a negative thing to be avoided.
Professor Harvey says a lot of that has to do with what you do.
So if you're out there working, you have a different attitude about the weather than if you're out there doing something you love to do.
Age might also have something to do with it. The younger you are, the more likely you're to enjoy the cold and snow.
I think it's really pretty, and I like playing with it when I was younger and stuff, so it brings back my childhood nostalgia.
And that right there might be the answer. Professor Harvey says it's our memories of winter that likely shape our perception of it today. In particular, our childhood memories.
There's probably a fondness in your memory too, you know, and that's going to influence, you know, how you perceive snow now.
But, he says, memories are more often wrong than right.
Memory can't be totally trusted. It's not like a recording device.
It's not just psychological either. Our bodies play a big role.
Because it's just so tangible. You know, you can just visually see all this snow coming, and that's different from cold weather. You don't see it in the same way. You feel it, of course, immediately, but we're not as in tune with our skin senses as we are with, you know, vision.
So the next time you see the first flakes of snow flying, remember to keep your head.
All right, Professor Harvey added that our social behavior has a lot to do with how we perceive or react.
Yeah, if we associate with people that have a positive attitude towards snow, then we're likely to have that same attitude, and vice versa. And the whole bread and milk thing, well, that's a story for another time.
Well, it's been nearly a month since daylight saving time ended, but it may feel like months to those who suffer from SAD, or seasonal affective disorder. It's real, and it has a real impact on how we feel on a day-to-day basis. Less sunlight is the main reason our mood can change to feelings of being down or even depressed, but the weather also factors in.
We know that spending time outside is good for you, right? It's good for your body, it's good for your mind. There are several things that keep people from spending a lot of time outside. An obvious one is weather.
And unless you have a good reason to be outside when it's cold, you're probably going to avoid something that may actually be good for you.
And now the time you've all been waiting for, our official winter forecast. Before we get to how much snow we're going to get this season, we got to recap things a little bit. El Nino, we know that it's going to be here for our winter months, but it's not the only ingredient or thing we look at. We have to know if there's going to be colder air coming with it as well. And so we look to the north. We look at snowpack, and that's a big impact on how cold the air will be once we start getting cold waves to come southward. We are looking at below average snowpack right now in Eurasia. That includes Siberia. And we're also looking at below average snowpack in much of Canada. So this could play a big role in how much cold air we can tap into and have available when storm systems come through. So that could play a big role in our forecast. All right, let's talk about what we are expecting. Let's go with the averages first and foremost. And I want to start with La Nina years. Now, La Nina years, we've had several of those, 28 of them in fact. We average about 10.3 inches of snow during La Nina years. And El Nino years, we average about 16 inches of snow. And we've had 26 years on record with El Ninos. This will be 27. And when you average all the years on record in Asheville, that goes 153 years back. It comes down to around 10 inches of snow on average. So let's break down some of the biggest El Ninos we've had in terms of snowfall. 1968, 1969, if you remember that snow season, that's the most we've ever had in one season, 48.2 inches. Not far behind, we had 2009, 2010. We already talked about that earlier in the show. That was a big year, 39 inches of snow fell, and you see the other respective years in the top 7. Now, we've also had big busts when it comes to snows during El Ninos, and we've had as little as 1.5 inches of snowfall during an El Nino in the 91-92 winter season. So you see there is also the other side of the equation where we can have much less snow than El Ninos typically bring. Let's break down those El Ninos from weak to very strong, the categories. We've had 11 years of El Ninos on the weak side. We average about 12 inches of snow those years. Look at the moderate years. We've had 7 years on record with moderate El Ninos. We average over 24 inches those years, and we've averaged about 14 inches with the strong El Ninos, but we've only had 5 years of those on record and only 4 years on record of very strong El Ninos, where we average almost 20 inches of snow. This year, we are expecting El Nino to fall into the strong or very strong category. So what does that mean? When you average those out, it comes down to around 16.6 inches of snow for Asheville. So what are we expecting? Let's break it down for you. We're expecting above average snowfall in much of western North Carolina and down into the northern upstate. So whatever snowfall you typically get in a season, add a little more to that. When you get down into the upstate, it's average to slightly above average for snowfall. So we're not expecting a whopper winter down there for the snow lovers down into the upstate. As we break down Asheville's forecast, again, we average around 10 inches of snow any given season. We are predicting 16 inches of snow for Asheville. So that is several inches more than typical. If you want to see a higher total, go to Mount Mitchell. They typically average around 90 inches of snow. I am expecting close to average up at Mount Mitchell with about 90 inches of snow. So Ryan, you know, we always say it takes one storm to really be the maker for the winter forecast. We'll see how this one plays out. I think we'll have multiple ones.
Yeah, certainly interesting new winter season upon us. And of course, thank you for joining us for this Weathering the Winter special.
Yep. And all the information that you've seen here tonight will be online at WLOS.com. Have a safe winter season and stay warm.